Namaskar and welcome back to our live series. We will continue our discussion of chapter 2. First, let's see where we are. We are in the second topic of the second chapter. Shlokas 11 to 25 talk about the self-knowledge. Don't think that self-knowledge is very complicated, something about a knowledge which is unknown to us. It's knowledge about ourselves. So the word self-realization, Atma Sakshatkara, etc., seems to be a technical word far removed from us. Simple meaning is we understand ourselves properly. That's it. So who am I? What am I? Is the theme of this section. And we were discussing one of the most important shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Shloka 16. Let's listen to that and we will conclude because we discussed a table last week. So we will go back to that table and try to explain that table properly and conclude the shloka and move on to the 17th shloka. And of course, we can have Q&A. So this is the agenda for today. So let's listen to the shloka one more time.
नासतो विद्यते भावः न भावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः.
So this is the shloka we have been seeing. So we try to unpack the literal meaning and also the implied meaning. The whole idea is Krishna is stating a basic fact about Sat and Asat. What is real and what is relatively real. I really don't want to use the word unreal. So what is real versus what is relatively real? Or in other words, what is absolutely real? And the other one is what is relative. The technical term is Paramarthika Satyam versus Vyavaharika Satyam, or Satyam versus Mithya. There are three orders of the reality which we talked last week. One is Satyam, the second one is Mithya, and the third one is Tucham. In other words, it is known as Paramarthika Satyam, Vyavaharika Satyam, and Pradipasika Satyam. These are the three orders of reality, if you can explain like that. So the difference is there is something called Paramarthika Satyam or absolute reality, and that is what is known as Sat. Sat means Abadidam Satyam. It cannot be dismissed or negated at any period of time. It was there in the past, it is there right now, and it will be there in the future. That cannot be touched by the time, space, everything. That is what is absolute reality. It always exists, and it is not dependent upon anything else for its existence. That is another thing. Because if you think about the pot is dependent upon clay. If you take the clay out, there is nothing exist. So whereas Sat, it doesn't dependent upon anything else for its existence. In fact, that is the existence. In fact, that is what is providing existence to everything else. This is the nature of the Sat. And this is absolute reality. And Krishna says, to that absolute reality, what happens? There is no known existence. It always exists. That's a simple fact. And come to the second point, which is the relative reality. It is known as Vyavaharika Satya or Mithya. Mithya. Satyam, Mithya. So Mithya's nature is, it was not there in the past, it has a temporary existence now, and it will not have an existence in the future. So if Sat was independent of time, the existence of Mithya is dependent upon time. If you take our body, it was not there 100 years back, and it will not be there 100 years later. In between exists. In the beginning, it was not there. In between, it exists. And finally, it went back. It disappeared. That's point number one. Point number two is its existence is a borrowed existence. Right? So the existence of the Mithya is dependent upon Sat. In fact, Sat is the one give existence to Mithya. So its existence is dependent. So a pot, the pot was not there yesterday, and a pot was made today, and after some time the pot will not be there. But is the pot has an independent existence? The pot's existence is entirely dependent upon something else called clay. Like that, everything you can see right now, your body, the universe, the sun and the moon and the stars, even we talked about the redwood trees, forget about that, even the galaxies, everything. Aneka koti brahmanda nayaki. This is what Devi was described in the Lalita Sahasranama. The one who gives existence to this Aneka Koti Brahmanda, the galaxies and everything, whatever you can think, billions of years existence, but still it will have a beginning and an end. And what exactly gives that existence to everything? That is what is Sat. So the Mithya do not have absolute existence. Shankaracharya gives a beautiful example in Atma Bodha. So, see, when you cook something, right, you will have a pot, and on the pot you will put some water, and then you put vegetables or rice or whatever it is. What exactly is giving heat to that rice or vegetable or whatever is that raw food? It is the water. But what exactly is the heatness of the water? Is that independent property, or is that a borrowed property? See, the whole temperature of the water, it's a borrowed property from the fire. Because of the contact with the fire, the water got that heatness. If you take that fire away from the water for a period of time, what happened? The heat also is gone. So what does that mean? The heat, I mean, the water was hot. That temperature was not an inherent property of the water. So exactly like that, the world exists, but who gave that existence? It is that Sat. So that is the difference between Sat and Asat. So now the problem is, when sages say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, you cannot ignore Mithya. You have to deal with that. And it is said, Vyavaharika Satyam, you have to deal with that. You cannot escape. So that is very clear. This is like terribly misinterpreted, this particular portion. And people become very much insensitive to the world, which is completely wrong. So Krishna here says that there was no independent existence, na bhavaha. Use the word independent existence. We didn't say that Asat do not have existence. No independent existence for the Asat. What does that mean? The Asat exists for some time, but that existence was completely dependent upon the Sat. That's it. So this is beautifully expressed in one of the Upanishad by 3 laws of causation. Swami Chinmayananda was very famous. He used to quote this always. The 3 laws, I'll just explain. We are going a little bit deep dive because it's good if you get this idea very properly, because you will get the key to unlock any Upanishads. If you know what is Sat and what is Asat, if you know what is Satyam, what is Mithya, and if you know what is Paramarthika Satyam. Paramarthika means what? Paramarthika means absolute level. It is true at all the point of time. Paramartham, supreme goal. What that truth? And that truth is like, so, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So that truth, there is 3 laws in the Upanishads. So the first one is, it talks about the Asat. Asat, every effect, because Asat cannot be a cause, because it is always dependent upon something. So every effect will have a cause. Simple law. Every effect will have a cause. If you take a pot, the pot has a cause called clay. Every golden ornament has a cause called gold. Every wave has a cause called water. Now the second point, this is brilliant. Effects are, it's plural. Effects are nothing but the cause itself in a different form. Effects are nothing but the cause itself in a different form. Apply the same example. All the pots, all the mud pots are nothing but the mud itself in a different form, isn't it? All the golden ornaments are nothing but the gold itself in a different form. All the waves are nothing but water. The top of the wave is water. The middle of the wave is water. Everything is water. Water. And what is the third rule? If you take that Sat from Asat, if you take that fundamental cause from the effect, nothing remains. One more time. If you take that cause from the effect, nothing remains. If you take all the clay from the the pot, there's absolutely no existence. It's only a name and form. That's it. If you take the gold from the golden ornaments, nothing exists. If you take the water out of the wave, nothing exists. This is what it is. So we need to understand, he makes the second statement. Those who know the truth, they understood what is Sat and what is Asat. And this is what is beautifully expressed through the Vedic prayer. Asatoma Sadgamaya. Lead me from identifying with Asat to Sat. How? And that is going to lead me from Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, from darkness to light. When I reach that, what happens? Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. See, if I identify with Asat, it has a beginning and an end. Mrityu. And if I identify myself with Sat, what is going to happen? Immortality. So lead me from mortality to immortality. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from Asat to Sat. Everybody utters this prayer almost every day, but look at the depth of it. This shloka is going to unlock. Now, one more point. So that those who knows the truth knows what is Sat and what is Asat. And they don't see permanence in Asat, and they try to identify themselves with the Sat. That is the whole idea. And after this, Krishna is going to talk about the Sat now, from now onwards, for a few set of shlokas. But before that, let's take a moment and try to understand what is tucham, the third order of reality. Satyam, mithya, tucham. Paramarthika satyam, vyavaharika satyam. Vyavaharika satyam means what? It is truth. It is real, but from a relative time period. Only for a relative time period. Empirical reality, that is another word we can use, or the relative reality. So it's true for some time. So I cannot ignore it, but know that we don't have any impermanence. And the third one is called pratibhasika satyam. Pratibhasa, it's just an illusion, nothing else. We talked about the example of the rope and the snake. The snake doesn't exist at all. It only exists in my mind. So it's a projection of my mind. Drishti eva srishti, srishti eva drishti. Vyavaharika satyam, or relative reality, tells me that it exists, therefore I see it. And pradibhasika satyam or tucham, I see it. So for me, therefore it exists. I see the snake. So for me, I need to deal with that. I need to correct my understanding. So this is the three orders of reality. This understanding is very much important to understand the overall Upanishads and remove a lot of misunderstandings about the Upanishad. Upanishad doesn't say Jagat Tucham, not at all. It said Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. That's it. So when Jagan Mithya, the problem is a lot of people interpreted Mithya as illusionary, which is it clear? Okay. So, Avanti, you want to add anything? Otherwise, we will quickly go and explain the table.
I think you can explain the table and then I'll sum it all up.
Okay. Sure. So, before getting into the table, this is the diagram. This diagram is simply captures what is the difference between Sat and Asat. You can see that all subjective experience, all objective experience means every other human being we interact, all the locations we encounter, all the planetary systems we encounter, anything we can outside, anything you experience outside belongs to Asat, and they are part of Asat. Because you can see they are conditioned by time. Not just that, every inner experience, your mind, your intellect, all the thoughts you experience, your pancha prana, everything is subjected to time. And that is also Asat. So everything you experience, everything known to you is Asat. That's a big statement. Everything known to you is Asat. Then where is this Sat? We are going to find that out a little bit later. This is beautifully explained by the Upanishad mantra, because first the sages of India or the Vedic rishis, they looked at this vast universe. In that vast universe, the first inquiry was, what exactly is the cause of this universe? What is the cause? Kasminno vijnade sarvamidam vijnadam bhavati. By knowing which, what is that fundamental building block, knowing which I can understand everything? Or what is that fundamental reality? Or what is that fundamental cause of this entire cosmos? See, for a lot of people, this world is of utilitarian value, right? Most of the people don't care about these questions. If it is a utility, I will enjoy. See, Swami Chinmayananda used to say, Like if a piece of paper lying there, the cow will come, smell it to see whether it can be eaten. If it cannot be eaten, it will throw away. Most of the people, the world is like that. If something is useful to me or something is materially beneficial to me, I will take it. Otherwise, who cares about the world? But that's not the case with scientists. How many years Einstein spent on this relativity? How many years? How many years? Last 25 years he was searching for his unified field. Edison, who lived next door, right, back door, how much time he spent on each of this experiment? They don't realize the days goes by, right? That requires a tapas. And such people who are more matured, who wanted to understand things, for them the world is more than just a utilitarian value. They wanted to understand the fundamentals. Thanks to such great minds, that is why all the discoveries happened, all the scientists are there. So Swami again, I don't know, like today's all Swami Chinmayananda's quotes comes to my mind. So Swami Chinmayananda used to say, these rishis were subjective scientists. He used to coin a word, subjective scientists. These people try to inquire everything outside to see the cause. What happened? They miserably failed. It is documented. What is that documentation? Yato vacho nivartande aprapya manasasahi. That which seems to be the object of my sense organs, that meaning I'm not able to find that truth through my walk, through my speech, or through any of my sense organs. So I failed. That is the time they started looking inward. So that is how they discovered that the consciousness in me is the most purest expression of that reality. I'm just jumping ahead, but that is how they found. So the whole idea here is everything subjective, everything objective is mithya. Sat is totally different. So let's see the table. So the table, let's try to understand each point, because if you understand this, this is going to be very clear. What is the definition of Sat? The unchanging, eternal essence of existence. That's it. Unchanging. See, it's not that it is always there. It won't change. Everything else is subjected to sixfold modification, Shatbhava Vihara. But Sat does not change, and it is unchanging and eternal. These two words are very consciously selected word, very purposefully. Both are needed, because something was there in the past, but the property was ABC, and it is now, the property is XYZ, and it is there tomorrow, it is X1, Y1, Z1. If that is the case, it is changing. Sat is not like that. It is unchanging truth, eternal. And what exactly it is? It is the absolute existence. So this is the definition. Then what is the definition of Asat? It is temporary. That means it has a beginning, it has an end. When I say temporary, sometimes it is billions of years. If you take the galaxies, it could be billions of years. 12.5 billion they project, right? So that type of length. But still it is temporary. So temporary means it has a beginning and an end, conditioned by time. Then it is ever-changing phenomena, and it is perceived by senses. And whereas the Sat cannot be perceived directly by the senses. And what is the nature? Existence. It exists inherently and continuously across time. Imagine that example I talked earlier, the heat of the water, the hotness of the water, the temperature, the property of the water, it is not an inherent property. It is an intrinsic property. Whereas Sat, existence, is an inherent property and it exists all the period of time. Whereas apparent existence arises and dissolves within the Sat. That is the Bhava. The third one is that Abhava. Abhava means it is impossible for Sat. Whereas Asat, it has a beginning and it has an end. So non-existent before the creation and non-existent after the destruction. That is the Asat. Then dependency. It is independent, the source substratum of all. Again, I don't know, like Swami Chinmayananda's quote comes in. He used to call it as uncaused cause. He coined a word, uncaused cause, because it is not dependent upon anything else. That is what it is. And whereas Asat means it's entirely dependent upon Sat for its existence. It arises and dissolves back into Sat. Remember, the pot, it arises from the clay, it exists in clay, and it merges back to clay. What is conscious? What is Sat? Consciousness. That is the nature. Right. Sat eva chit. The famous Mundaka Upanishad quote. What exactly is the nature of this Sat? It is neither matter nor energy. The Surupa or the nature of the Sat is consciousness. Consciousness, by definition, right? It is that by which you are aware of your thoughts and emotions. That's it. It's the neuroscience. It's not the neuroscience definition of the consciousness. It is totally different. So please try to understand that. And this is the absolute reality of the universe. And what is Asat? It is body, mind, emotions, object, thoughts, and the sensory experiences. Longevity. It is permanent and timeless. Whereas Asat is temporary, exists within a period of time. Illustrative example, the clay. And the Asat's example is pot. We already talked about that. Goal of a human being is to shift my identity from Asat to Sat. So if you understand this table, you understand what is Sat and Asat, at least theoretically. So now, all the literature, all the Vedic literature and all the Puranic literature, this is what they talk. Right? And do you know what is the definition of Mahavishnu? Vishwam, Vishnu. This is the first two names of Vishnu, right? And the third one is, so I'm just taking one example only. If you take chant the Vishnu Sahasranama, those who haven't studied Vishnu Sahasranama, don't think that as a mere prayer or a stotram. It is the ultimate Vedantic textbook. So it says, Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkaru, Bhuda Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu, Bhudakrit, Bhudabhrit Bhavo, Bhudatma, Bhuda Bhavana. Take one or two names. What is Vishwam? He who whose manifestation is the universe. So he is the Sat. His manifestation is the Vishwam. He who manifested as the universe is Vishnu. And what is Vishnu? That which pervades everywhere. When you say pervade, it is we are going to explain that in the next shloka, so I'll hold off from that. It present, meaning it covers, it pervades everywhere. And that which pervades everywhere in the universe is known as Vishnu. It is only the Chaturbhuja Vishnu is only a symbolic representation. It has much more to that. So this is the essence of Sat and Asat. And just a recap, we talked about what is Sat, what is Asat. We talked about the definition. We tried to understand the three orders of reality. What is Paramarthika Satyam, what is Vyavaharika Satyam, and what is Pradipasika Satyam. Paramarthika Satyam is absolute existence. Vyavaharika Satyam is the relative existence. And Pradipasika Satyam is illusionary existence. And then it is called in three terms. It is Satyam, Mithya, and Tucha. And Krishna's point is that there is no non-existence for the Sat, and there is no independent existence for the Asat. Those who knows the truth, they understood the difference between what is Sat and Asat. Okay, let me pass over to Avanti.
Namaskar. So just a quick recap. This became very intense, very deep as well. And sometimes we just tend to lose our thought in all the technicalities of the words. So just to bring us back to our own life, to our own reality, and to the context in which we are speaking, what is the problem here? Arjuna is standing on the battlefield, unable to fight his loved ones, unable to wage this war with who he considers the dearest and the nearest. And as we saw last week, we went back to Shloka 12 briefly, which Rohitji very graciously read. And we saw that declaration of Krishna that never was there a time when they were not there and I was not there, and never will there be a time when they will not be there. So in that line only, he explains everything that Rajeshji has said, that he's not dismissing our relative reality, our consistent punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. He's not dismissing it as unreal. In fact, he's assuring us that we will come back. We'll come back with these same things or different things with the same people, different dynamics, whatever, but we will keep returning over and over and over again. So again, we have to understand that life cannot be just tossed away by a spiritual bypass, which a lot of new spiritual enthusiasts do. And I'm sorry to say, which a lot of even quote unquote gurus do. You can't chuck away your prarabdha in seeking something higher. And when Rajiji said that we cannot ignore this mithya, please understand, mithya is the only way for two things. What is Bhagavad Gita trying to give us? Material success and spiritual realization, self-realization. Those are the two goals. That's what he's trying to give Arjuna. Fight this war, win the kingdom, enjoy your life, and also that will take you to self-realization. So those are the two primary goals of Bhagavad Gita. We've said it over and over and over and over again in chapter 1. Inner peace, self-realization. Without that inner peace, you are not getting onto the seat of meditation, rest assured. Without your desires being fulfilled or transcended, without having exhausted what you have come with, you will not be able to sit with the Om. And of course, without the spiritual knowledge, you're not going to be able to lead a very spiritual life. So why we cannot ignore that asat or that mithya, why we cannot ignore it, is it is the only way done right through what we are going to learn, through karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga. When you do this mithya right, will you enjoy peace in the world? Think about it. You don't need the Bhagavad Gita at all to tell you this. If you're trying to fulfill your desires, if you're trying to transcend your desires, if you're trying to achieve material success, without this verse in your life, that in the end it is all mithya and the only sat is Atman, how much grief are you going to bring to yourself, and how much grief we do bring to ourselves? Taking it all as permanent, taking it as the end goal of all our existence, we hit our head against impossible feats, and we are dejected, we are diffident. We are overcome by sorrow and everything. So we have to use this mithya correctly. We have to live this mithya correctly. Krishna will teach us how. And only then will we be able to achieve this material success, whatever we are chasing. And without emptying, see, we've said this before. I think I've said this before a few times. The only thing standing between, if you look at the BMI chart also, the only thing that is standing between the body, mind, intellect, understanding that it is Om, it is Atma, which Krishna has declared in verse 12, is vasanas, is desires. So there's no way you can ignore that. You cannot ignore that. You have to transcend it or exhaust it correctly. And only then will you reach that Om. So please understand that yes, when you reach the fourth state, Turiya, this entire life folds back into dream. Just as you say the dream was not real, you will say, the sages say, this world is not real. But until then, I told you all the story of that monk and his disciples with the mad elephant last week. Until then, if an elephant is charging at us, we need to know how to save ourselves. Very, very important thing to on that. Now, there's a beautiful quote of Prema Chodron, who was a Buddhist, is a Buddhist monk, Tibetan monk. And in one line, in our language, she explains verse 12, all the verses in between, right up to this verse. Remember the verses preceding these verses. What did Krishna? Krishna already declared, you are Atma, everything else is, just fleeting and transient. And then he gives us the method. He says, he tells us first that every contact with the world is going to cause sorrow and joy. Then he says, he who can bear this contact without getting affected, he is wise. And then he comes to this verse. So Prema Chodron's quote, which I absolutely love and which describes all of chapter 2, I would say in one word, in one line is, you are the sky. Please write this down. It's beautiful. You are the sky. Everything else is just weather. If you understand this one line, you are Atma, everything is coming, is going. Marta Sparshas. It's touching you, it's leaving you. It's touching you and it's leaving you. Again, you don't need the Bhagavad Gita to tell you that how many ever years you've lived on this earth, you have gone through innumerable joys, innumerable sorrows. None of them have lasted. So Krishna's line here, the last line, which is very important in this verse, the essence of both these is understood by the seers of truth. This does not only mean the realized sages. If we can start understanding this essence in our day-to-day life, when we are hit with the worst sorrow, if we can come back to our notes, if we can come back to this verse or to the video recording and see, actually, it's going to pass. This too will pass. And if I can hone in, if I can sit in that reality, in that truth that I am Atma, I will be able to handle the situation well. Same goes with joy. Don't think this only works with sorrow. How carried away we get in our successes, in our joys, in our the way the ego inflates with joy. That is why Kunti asked Krishna, please only give me sorrows so that I'm always at your feet. One small joy inflates our ego. Once somebody claps, oh, you're so great. Oh, you speak so well. Oh, you do this. That's it. That's it. We are disconnected. So in both ways, in joys and sorrows, if we are able to sit with this last line, that I see the difference. When you talk about Jnana Yoga, oh my God, there's so many definitions. What is Jnana Yoga? But I stick to only one. And that's how I remind myself. And that comes from the Bhaja Govindam, where Shankaracharya says, Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. For me, that is Jnana Yoga. Everything else is technicality. What does that mean? The one who knows the difference between what is eternal and what is just temporary. And why? And this we do not need to know theoretically. We need to know this in our bones so that we invest our precious, priceless human birth in what is real, in understanding what is real. And we let it go, whatever is not real. Right now, we're doing just the opposite. Every emotion we are pouring into everything that is unreal. And that is what is manifesting, remanifesting, asserting itself, and writing our future scripts for innumerable more births. So if we can just shift our focus and assert and invest in what is real, which is Atma, how do you do that? Through study. Consistent study of this subject. We have been hypnotized to believe I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect through millions of lifetimes. Now the work starts where we have to dehypnotize ourselves. Yes, I am the body, but it is not permanent. Yes, I am the emotions that I feel, but they are not permanent. Yes, I am the thoughts that I entertain, but they are not permanent. Continuously dehypnosis. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm not propagating him because I don't follow him or anything, but one thing that Sadhguru gives very freely on YouTube is very helpful. It's called the Isha Kriya. It's a guided meditation by him, where on an in-breath you say, I'm not the body, in the in-breath you say, I'm not the body, in the out-breath you say, I'm not the mind. Things like this help us How do we assert that we are the Atma and we are not the body and we are not the mind? So his was incomplete because it doesn't come from Vedanta. But how I teach it to some of my students is on the inhale, you say, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. And on the exhale, you say, I am Atma. Same thing, inhale, I'm not the body, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the mind. On the exhale, I am Atma. Keep repeating this to yourself 5 times a day, several times a day. If you want to go Sanskrit, because I believe that the gods hear the language of Sanskrit, Koham on the inhale, Shivoham on the exhale. Who am I on the inhale? I am that on the exhale. These little meditations, when you bring into your life, you will start asserting these verses in your life. And what that will do is you will see proof is in the pudding. We can chatter how much ever we want. But next episode that happens in your life, if you are able to sit in the chaos, in that Ashanti, and chant, Koham, Shivoham, you will see how you will address that, how you will address that episode and come out of it. So very, very important to understand this verse. And if we look at the reflective prompt, we'll go over the reflective prompt and the quote so that we can wrap this up. It's on page number 151 for whoever has the book. Is your current perception of reality wholly centered around your health, family, career, positions, and social engagements? Exactly what I said that we were hypnotized by. This is my reality. This is it. If this doesn't add up, if these ducks are not in a row, I'm finished. So ask yourself, is that what you feel is real? Is that your sat in your life? Are those the toys that make your joys? Please ask yourself that question. Do the constant changes in these external factors keep you stressed and anxious? If you have made these things your sat, your absolute truth, ask yourself, are they causing me upsets? Are they causing me, joys and sorrows? Now, the next question, how might what you studied in the shloka help alleviate some of that inner turmoil? Exactly what we have said. So one thing you have to understand, the more you are engaged and invested in asat, the more you will be hit by the onslaughts of life. The more you start steering your thoughts and your mind towards Sat, that you are Brahman, the less you will be affected. Like Rashiji said, we are now going to be studying the different qualities of Sat. One of the qualities, biggest qualities, is non-affectation. He will say it. It cannot be burnt, it cannot be this, it cannot be hurt, it cannot be that you are. So we have to start gearing ourselves towards that orientation within ourselves, that we are Atma, that internal witness, that eternal witness is not harmed. All of this I will handle as it comes. And then the quote says, know the eternal within, Tattvamasi. That is what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching across 18 chapters. Know the eternal within and let the temporary flow like a gentle stream. Be anchored in the absolute unshakable knowing, I am the ocean. All of this is just waves. I am the eternal sky. Everything else is weather. With that, we can jump into Shloka number 70.
What was that monk's name again?
Prema Shodran. I will send you the quote after the class.